So we now have the pastries ready for the oven. So we're going to pop these in. How long are we putting them in for?
They're just going to go in for about 10 to 15 minutes. You can generally tell. Oh wait, I forgot something. I'm sorry.
Hey everyone, welcome back to James Street South. Today we are here with the lovely Lana and we are going to be making something absolutely amazingly scrumptious. What are we making today, Lana?
I'm making, they're like cheese pastries. They're usually a Christmas recipe, but I just like to make them all the time. And they have blue cheese on the inside.
Oh my goodness, blue cheese.
They're really nice. I don't even really like blue cheese, but like
it's nice in this.
Whenever they're in these, it just works really well.
Amazing. What are we going to do first then?
First thing is I need to mix the butter into the flour. So I'm just going to put this into the bowl.
Fabulous.
And then start to kind of work the butter in.
Awesome. So Lana, tell us a little bit about yourself then. So, and you were diagnosed with cancer. What cancer were you diagnosed with and when?
I was diagnosed with Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2016. So I was sort of unofficially told that they were pretty sure they knew what it was on the 24th of May. But then on the 1st of June, which is actually unfortunately my best friend's birthday, so I had to be like, happy birthday, here's some bad news.
Oh my goodness.
It was confirmed that I had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And
wow.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, I honestly, that would be really, really difficult. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I know that non-Hodgkin's is a bit more difficult to get through when it comes to treatment and things.
We were very unsure at the start because like this is the first experience with cancer that we ever had in my family, except for my granda, who I didn't meet.
Especially stage 4, that must have been so frightening.
Yeah, my parents took it really hard. I think my parents took it harder than I did because you sort of just go into survival mode at the start. And you're just kind of trying to get by from day 1 to day 2.
Yeah, that's whenever I was going through my own cancer journey, the one thing I kept telling myself was one day at a time, literally one day at a time. So with regards to treatment then, so what was your treatment plan? How did that look?
So at the start, initially they sort of thought that it was actually stage 3, but then I had a PET scan, I think after my first chemotherapy, and that was whenever they found out it was stage 4. So whenever they got like a grasp on the size of my tumours and all of that, then my treatment plan was altered. But originally the plan was chemotherapy and possibly radiotherapy, and in the end I had 15 chemotherapies, 3 different types, and 15 doses of radiotherapy to my chest.
Wow. You had a lot more chemotherapy than I had. I had, I think, 6 rounds of chemotherapy and then 15 days of radiotherapy.
Yeah.
Do you know, radiotherapy, I have to say, was probably the easier side for me because you just had to lie there. I think the side effects that come along with chemotherapy, how did that go for you?
I actually got very, very lucky with side effects.
Yeah.
I didn't really have, my worst side effect was neutropenia. I got neutropenic, like, you know, I took infections quite a lot. But I got very lucky in terms of like nausea and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do have really bad fatigue now, like after the fact.
Yeah. I have to say I'm really, really similar with fatigue. I mean, it's been a year now since I finished chemo, and it was something that I just wasn't expecting it. I think part of me thought that as soon as I was done with treatment that I could just go back to normal life, but it's just not as simple as that.
That's exactly it.
And it takes a lot to be patient with yourself. I'm sure you're the same. I mean,
I really am.
It's so frustrating. Frustration's probably one of the biggest things to cope with mentally.
Yeah. I know I was actually in my second last year of A-levels. Whenever I was diagnosed, so I was kind of just told, just forget about school, you know, you're not going to be able to do your exams.
Oh my goodness.
And so after the fact, you know, whenever everything was over, I thought, okay, well, I can just get back into it and I can finish like what I started. But it just wasn't all that simple, you know.
It's not as simple as that, and I think it's really important to sort of for other people who are maybe going through something similar like that, that it's just not as simple as get up and go. You sort of have to listen to your body, and you have to, still now, I take each day as it comes. You just don't know what's going to happen, and it can be really hard not to get frustrated with yourself, can't it?
It's really a learning curve of like learning to be patient with yourself, because you know, no one really expects to suddenly be in a position where they can't do the things that they're so used to doing. So it really is a learning curve.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously with chemotherapy, did you do ABVD, or what chemo did you do?
I did R-CHOP, which was rituximab, cyclophosphamide, doxorubicin, vincristine.
Oh my word, you know all the names. I couldn't even tell you what ABVD is.
And then I did, I had intrathecal methotrexate. So I had a tumour on my kidney, and new research came out that said if you have like a solid kidney tumour, I think it was, then you're more likely for it to spread to your central nervous system.
Right, okay.
So they gave me that chemo sort of as like a preventative thing. And then I had my radio, and then I had I had methotrexate given intravenously.
Oh, goodness me, you poor thing.
It was a lot.
So what are we doing now then?
I am trying to, okay, I'm going to be adding the water here.
Adding some water in, right, okay, let's see how we do this.
So I'm adding like 2/3 of this, just to the centre.
Okay.
Let's see, that was 150 millilitres, so that looks about right.
Yeah, that looks good.
And yeah, I'm just going to mix this in. And this is sort of where it becomes like a solid.
Does it get quite liquidy, or? Oh no, it doesn't actually.
It does at the start, but as you mix it in, it becomes a lot more.
Whenever you were going through chemo, just because we're actually cooking today, was there any foods in particular that you really enjoyed eating, or how was your appetite and things during that time?
I have never had a great appetite. But when I was on chemo, I took really strange cravings.
Oh really?
So the main thing I wanted to eat was iceberg lettuce.
Oh my goodness, that's so weird.
Iceberg lettuce.
Here, go to the shop and grab me a lettuce. Would you mind?
I remember there was one time I was actually on treatment, like at the time I was in Laurel House, and I was on the IV, and the nurses came round with lunch, and they were like, oh, what do you want? And I said, oh, don't really want anything, not really hungry. And they said, okay, well, you need to eat something. And everyone was trying to convince me, do you want chocolate? Do you want this? Do you want that? And I said,
I know, they put everything in front of you. They put ice cream, they put jelly.
And I said to my mum, can you go up to the canteen and just get me like a box of lettuce? And she came back, and that's what I had that day.
Oh my goodness. Talk about eating like a rabbit.
Oh, really? It was either that or, you know, like the wee hard sweets and their pear drops.
Yes.
Those.
Yeah, I loved sucking on mints and things whenever I was doing chemo as well.
Yeah.
But your experience of chemo would have been quite different to mine, even though we had the difference between Hodgkin's lymphoma and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. You'd think the treatments would be quite similar, but they're really not. Honestly, I didn't even understand one of the medical terms that you just said there in the past 5 minutes.
Was it intrathecal?
No, I have no idea. I have no idea. But do you know what? It just goes to show you the intricacies of all the different treatments that there are.
That's really true.
There really does. So you must have had an absolute whirlwind of a year.
I really did. It was just, you know, it was just kind of trying to get by from A to B.
Yeah.
But then whenever you sort of have time to like stop and reflect on it, you're kind of like, whoa.
Isn't it so scary? Whenever you actually think about everything that you've been through, sometimes I sit and I'm like, how did I do that? Like, I can't believe I actually did that. And I think I'm sure you're probably very similar, Lana. I have such a fear now of having to do it again if it was to come back. And I think, I mean, chatting to you today, it seems like a really real fear that whenever you're going through something so traumatic and you're getting all these symptoms, I'm not sure if you feel this way, but whenever I would even go into hospital now for checkups, I'm like, nope, get me out of here. The smells, the tastes, everything, needles, it's really, really difficult. Yes. And it almost like makes me a wee bit emotional, like chatting to people about it, because it's such a hard thing to go through. And being able to talk to people about it and kind of have someone to relate to it's almost like really special, because there's nobody else that truly understands what you've been through.
It's a very isolating thing, so whenever you meet other people that do know what it's like, especially like young people, you know, it really is a special thing.
How did you find the whole hair side of things?
See before we continue,
Yeah.
Can I pause to wash my
Yes, of course, no problem.
Thanks.
Whenever I was diagnosed with cancer, the first thing I googled was how to not lose your hair while going through chemo.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to find someone else that I could relate to. How did you find that experience going through that? Because what age were you whenever you were diagnosed?
I just turned 17.
Oh, what a hard time in school
Definitely.
and everything. How did it go for you?
I honestly was not that attached to my hair.
Yeah.
I had a bad haircut.
You're like, be gone.
Yes, I was like so ready for a fresh start. But whenever I first went into hospital, I actually dyed my hair twice in the hospital bathrooms.
Dyed it?
Yeah, because I knew I was going to lose it. So my parents were like, do you want me to bring you some hair dye? And I was like, yes, get me electric pink.
Oh my goodness.
So I dyed my hair electric pink before my diagnosis, and then just after my diagnosis, I washed that out and went for blue, and then it all fell out.
Oh. And the falling out process for you, for me it was very gradual. But I know that some people, it's like there one day and gone the next type thing.
It wasn't too bad. After the first chemotherapy, I was sort of noticing like clumps, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But then after the second, I was waking up every day with like electric blue hair everywhere. So that's when we...
At least you could find it easy
I
enough.
know, that's true.
Do you know what? It was actually very, very smart and practical of you to do that.
I never thought
I
of
do
it.
commend you.
Thank you.
Do you know, whenever I was diagnosed, I was texting my hairdresser and I was like, here, do you reckon I could go like bleach blonde in like a week? She was like, Mia, I don't think that's a good idea. Because I was so close to starting chemo, because everything with me happened so quickly. And they were just like, don't be putting those sort of chemicals near your head, please. My hair was sort of like my little security blanket.
Yeah.
So whenever that started to go, I was very much like,
I'm sure that would have been devastating.
yeah, and I mean, I've had my hair down to my bum for I don't know how long, and thankfully before I was diagnosed, I actually had got it cut up a little bit shorter, just below my shoulders, so that softened the blow. And one thing that I found whenever I was going just about to start, so yeah, I think I started chemotherapy, and then I started chemotherapy in November. In December, I got it cut into a bob, just to kind of soften the blow a little bit, and that's something that really helped me.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think like not long after my hair started coming out in big clumps, we actually shaved it. So I basically just had a buzz cut. And then from there, you know, when it did fall out in patches, like it was very patchy, but because it was already so short,
Yeah.
it was a lot easier than having like, you know, patches of long hair gone. So
I think mentally it would be a lot easier to deal with
Yeah.
that, because it's not coming out in your hands.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all the mental side of it.
Sharon was the time that always really upset me, because like, you know, when you're washing your hair, that's when it all comes
Yeah.
out. That was the time that upset me.
Did you have a pick line?
I did. I got a pick line put in, I think after my second chemo.
Oh, I'm so glad I got it done before my chemo, and I was so glad that I did.
It was so good. I resisted it for ages because I have this weird mental thing where if there's an IV like in the crook of my arm, I will not bend my arm, even though I know that I can.
Yeah.
So I originally thought that the pick line actually went in the crook of your arm, and so I was like, no, I don't want it, not going to get it, you know, and then it turns out it goes up here, so.
Yeah.
But it was great.
I still look at my wee scar from my pick line sometimes, and I'm just like, you helped me so much, thank you.
Exactly it.
But you know, whenever I originally started showering and things, going through it, it was hard because like you've got the plastic bag around your pick line so it doesn't get wet, and it really does become part of you.
It really
For
does.
that amount of time that you're in treatment, it is an absolute godsend that it's there for you to use. It makes treatment so much more manageable. But at the same time, now that it's gone, sometimes I feel like I can still feel it in my arm and it's not there. So I'm like, what is my brain doing right now?
I'm so glad that I had it,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad it's gone now, if you know what I mean. Like,
did it hurt whenever you got it taken out?
it didn't hurt. I didn't really have any ill effects with that, but I know that whenever I was getting it put in, they had a really hard time getting it in because my veins are awful.
So just for everyone watching, so a pick line basically, it's a little device that goes in your arm and it goes up into your arteries around your heart, and it basically makes treatment for chemotherapy especially so much more efficient and faster. Otherwise, without our PICC lines, we probably would have been in hospital a lot longer.
Yeah, and
you know,
I know before that they had to try 8 times to get an IV in me because, like, as I said, my veins are just awful. So it was so much easier for them being able to take blood whenever they needed and also give me my treatment. So it was amazing.
It's all the little things, and I'd definitely say for anyone going through it again, I'm sure you'd be the same, Lana, is like all those little things like a PICC line and being prepared for coming home after chemotherapy. I just used to spend a lot of time making sure that everything was ready and prepared, especially food. I mean, we're cooking today, and food was probably, I love food, everyone loves food, but whenever your tastes change so much, and whenever I was going through chemo, all I could taste was metal. So having nice strong flavours and
it really makes a difference.
It makes such a difference, it really does. So what are we going to be doing here now then?
So this is actually ready to go in the fridge. So now that it's come together as like a solid dough.
Brilliant, so we're going to pop it in the fridge and then, yeah, we'll take it out and see how it looks. So our pastry is now out of the fridge. So what are we going to do now?
Now I'm going to put some flour down on the surface and we're just going to roll the pastry out.
I feel like we're making pizza or something.
Yeah, it's basically the same process. Like all we're going to do is just roll it out and sort of fold it over.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is roll it out in like one direction here.
Okay.
And just turn it over. It's good fun.
Yeah, it does. It looks like good fun. I think with baking, it really does become enjoyable. And before I was diagnosed with cancer, I would have been a real fussy eater. And I feel like since I'm such a fussy eater. Like, see, you'd be lucky getting a vegetable into my mouth sometimes. But recently, I've started experimenting with different recipes, and I got a cookbook for Christmas. I have just been loving it. It's so therapeutic, and I feel, especially with going through treatment and being fatigued, see if I make one meal during the day, I feel like I've accomplished something. And it's as simple as that. So, and that's why I think this cooking project is such a great idea, because for someone who wouldn't have really been into cooking before, you realise how amazing it actually is whenever.
Yeah. I think like whenever you're on treatment and whenever you're coming off it, it's sort of like learning to celebrate the little victories.
Yeah.
Because I know that's how I approach every day. Like if I can get a shower, then that's a victory. If I can get myself a meal, that's a victory. You know?
Do you know, I'm so happy that someone else feels the same way. I really, really am, because you've been out of treatment a little bit longer than I have. It's been about a year for me now, and it's been a few years for you. Do you know what, actually, just while we're here, do you know what? We'll have a look at your tattoos later on, because I spotted them whenever you came in today. She has some absolutely beautiful tattoos, and it's now inspired me to be like, oh, I might go and get one.
I highly recommend it, but you will get hooked. So if you want more.
I'll have a sleeve next time you see me.
That's actually the dream. Like,
you know what? With your style, you would really, really sit. You really sit tattoos. You really do. So is that us good to go?
Yeah, I think we're just going to put this back in the
So we're just going to basically pop this back in the fridge, and then we'll come back to you whenever we're done. So guys, we are back and our pastry is out of the fridge. So Lana, what are we going to do now?
Now I've got this all floured again, and I'm going to roll this back out, and this is whenever we're going to roll it like really thin, and we can start cutting it into its little squares that we can then make into the actual pastries.
Okay. Oh yes, I'll grease that for you, will I?
Give that over to you while I roll this out. So it's really nice and firm now, so I think it's pretty perfect.
It looks really good.
Thank you.
Do you know, I don't think I've actually ever worked with like pastries.
Up until recently, I was really too nervous because it seems like a really daunting thing. This is technically rough puff pastry, so it's sort of like an easier version, and you can, wing it a bit more. But I find it a lot easier to work with, and for the same results, like I think.
Do you prefer making the pastry, or do you prefer getting the pre-rolled stuff?
I personally prefer to make it.
Yeah.
I would only get the pre-rolled stuff anymore if like I'm on a time limit or something. My dad would make chicken pies, and sometimes we would just get the pre-rolled stuff so that we can focus on the filling. But generally, if you have the time, I prefer to do
it yourself.
Yeah.
I find I've really enjoyed starting to make things from scratch, because you know exactly what's going into it as
Yeah.
well. And from I finished my cancer treatment, like what I've been putting into my body, I've really started to pay attention to it a lot more. Whenever it comes to like takeaways and all the rest of it, so it's good to be aware of that, isn't it?
I have to say my junk food habits have not changed much since chemo.
Do you know, I actually made a point of not eating my favourite junk food because a lot of people told me that if you eat your favourite food during your treatment, then you might not like it afterwards.
Yeah, you might go off it.
Yeah.
I actually never got that advice, but I know that I did go off some of my favourite things to eat or drink, and I think it was just because of the way your tastes change on chemo.
Yeah.
Like I like spicy food where I never really did before.
Oh my word, I am actually very similar. I've never really been a fan of spicy food, and recently I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Now I don't like it if it's, you know, too spicy, but I'm definitely more adventurous than I was.
Yeah.
But the two main things that have really changed for me, and I think it's to do with the acid content in them, is strawberries and milk. I used to love them, and now, you know, they're just hit or miss for me.
Yeah, I've stopped having normal milk now. I have almond milk instead of anything, to be honest.
I find that I've always been very, like, I've needed like strong flavours, and I think I've tried almond milk and soy milk and stuff, but I think since chemo even more, you know, I need something like really strongly flavoured. I think that's thin enough.
That looks brilliant. So what do we do now? Do we cut it?
Yep, so now I'm going to kind of trim the edges
yeah.
off here to make it more square. And all of these scraps, I like to keep them because you can sort of re-roll them afterwards.
Yeah.
So I keep all these. Bear in mind that you need a top and a bottom to each pastry. So you'll probably only get maybe half of this. So I'm gonna cut all this off and then re-roll it after.
Okay.
So those can sit to the side for now. And if you want to make it a bit bigger, it can be like as thin or as thick as you want, really.
Do you prefer them thinner or thicker?
I like pastry, so I like to have fewer pastries that are a bit thicker, but as long as they're no thicker than maybe like half a centimetre or something.
Yeah.
You know, if they're much thicker than that, then they probably won't cook right the way through, but I think this is probably all right.
It looks brilliant. It looks. What would you say your favourite food is, like, of all time? Like, what would be your favourite meal?
It's definitely Japanese food.
Japanese? Do you like katsu curry?
I have not tried katsu curry.
Oh my goodness.
But that's one of the things that's actually on my to cook list soon.
I will send you the recipe for it because I've made it, since I got the cookbook, I've made it so many times, and it's just comfort food. Pure comfort
that's
food.
Everything I hear about it. The thing that I really love is gyoza. I make gyoza all the time, and you just fry them on one side and then steam them, and it comes out really nice.
So what would you normally go to, like, places like Wagamama's and stuff? Do you like their food?
I really do.
Yeah.
Wagamama's, or there's actually a place in Castle Court up in Belfast, and I think it's called Mitsuru, and I love it. Every time I go there, I get gyoza or ramen, just pure chicken ramen.
Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier on, before treatment and stuff, I was quite fussy, and now my tastes have almost changed a bit, and I'm a bit less fussy than I used to be.
Same experience.
Maybe it's just growing up. Maybe.
It's hard to know, because with the passage of time anyway, you're wondering, like, would I have started to like this anyway? You know.
So you're just cutting them up into little squares now, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just cutting them into squares, and you want to make them like as similar in size as you can, because you're going to have the top and the bottom. So it doesn't matter. So for like this example, you know, it doesn't matter if they're all a wee bit different. So these ones will go together, and these ones. And I'm going to actually break the egg in here so that I can start doing egg washes. So I am going to kind of whisk the egg in with this fork. And I find it doesn't really matter if it's not like really well combined. And we don't have a brush, so I'm going to use a spoon. And this is whenever we start actually cutting our cheese. So it doesn't matter again if it's the same knife, because it all kind of comes together in the end anyway.
Yeah.
So we're just cutting up little bits of cheese that we can then put into the center of our pastries. So
Wow.
taking a little bit of egg, you just go around the edges, and actually the spoon's working great. We just go around the edges of kind of our bottom piece.
Lana, you're such a pro.
Thank you.
Oh my word.
And for smaller ones, you don't actually need a lot of cheese in each one.
I feel like these would be so lovely for like a dinner party.
Yeah.
Like little appetizers.
Yeah, that's my favourite time to actually do them because they just go so well.
Yeah.
So whenever you're crimping, this is like crimping the edges, so you want to put the egg on your fork,
Yeah.
and then go around the edges of your pastry and kind of push the edges together.
Yeah. And it'll sort of fuse them, isn't it?
Yeah. And then it also leaves a really nice, like a nice pattern around the edges.
And this super fancy.
And this stays when they're all baked and everything, you can still see it.
That looks amazing.
So we're just going to do that basically with all our pastry. We're just going to do the quick egg wash around the edges and add our cheese.
So we now have the pastries ready for the oven. So we're going to pop these in. How long are we putting them in for?
They're just going to go in for about 10 to 15 minutes. You can generally tell. Oh wait, I forgot something. I'm sorry. I forgot to put the egg wash on top and the stuff on top. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So our pastries are all ready for the oven. So Lana, how long are we putting these in for?
They're only going to go in for about 10 or 15 minutes. You can generally tell because they're a nice golden colour on the top.
Brilliant.
And they don't really need long at all.
Fab. So we're going to pop them in now and we'll show you what they're like whenever they get out. Beautiful cheese puffs made by Lana are just gorgeous. Lana, I have absolutely loved chatting to you today.
It's been really nice chatting to you as well.
It's been so lovely meeting you and hearing your story and having someone else to relate to. And I'm sure we'll meet again very, very soon. But thank you so much. I can't wait to try one.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.